Wonderful. I'm so excited this evening. Ken Close, thank you so much for being here. My name is Cassie BB Jackson, and we are here for another episode of the Frequency Podcast with special guest Ken Close, who is many things, but one, a father of 5, and I love that being your number one title. But you're also an Epi-Gineer, an electronics engineer. You are the host of Tech Tip Tuesday with Jake Barron. Also co-host with What's Up Wednesday with Adriana Alvarez. And many other things. The mastermind team of Healy that was established in 2019 with Doc Steve, Terry Perez, and on the U.S. Board of Advisors. Wow, welcome.
Well, thank you for that welcome. I love it. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I'm happy to be here. And you know what? I love what you're doing with sharing the energy and the essence of Healy through the eyes of people here in the field. So thank you very much for that.
It's my pleasure. Right. So a lot of what people have been writing into me today about is, obviously loving all the different, the broadness and the range in which you're able to share about Healy. And, we were just speaking before we hopped on the podcast is just both of our fascinations with how the body mechanics in general. So our talk today, I want some of our listeners to maybe get a understanding of how Ken Close came to be. A little bit of your history, which I think really does bring a different element to our shares and gives us a little insight into, the making of this incredible community.
Yeah, that's so if we go all the way back to the creation of time, now we start to get an idea of where Ken Close came from, as well as yourself, right? That's a bit of a history lesson, but we'll fast forward quite a bit through all that Big Bang theory.
Right.
And I'm so into the science of creation, the science of the body. So we're going to get into that, I'm sure. But if we talk about where I began, I'm a military background guy, and my goal was eventually, early in life, my goal was actually to be a pilot, which was interesting, and that's an expensive adventure. And so I kind of thought, well, I'm going to go and get some money for college. So I thought the military was a great avenue, and it was an amazing experience in my life because I had a lot of lessons to learn. When I was young, I went in as a teenager and I had some lessons to learn, and it was a great asset for helping me learn those lessons. And I did achieve some money for school, but I didn't quite have enough for the pilot's degree. And I thought, you know what? I had all this experience in my life. What do I need to know? And I really had this calling to go into engineering. And so I pursued an engineering degree in electronics, and with that, I began to explore the fitness world, and that fitness world intrigued me because I was all about performance, was then, still am.
Right.
And that seemed to be a good fit in terms of my degree, my talents, and my passions. And so that started the pursuit of a business. I created a business around supporting the fitness industry. Was certified through all the major manufacturers, traveled all over the country in terms of support of that. And that company was about 25 years old. And but I felt like there was a disconnect. There was something missing. Right. When I go to the gym and I watch people, I see them day after day, week after week, month after month, and I have clients that are years old, right? I've had year after year. I see the same people coming in, and I would see them not changing much, right? They're working their butts off in the gym, not changing a lot. And that was something that interested me. I thought, with all that effort, with all that exercise, there's got to be something shifting in the body. Why is it not shifting? And one of my thoughts was, if there's exercise, there needs to be a chemical support or nutritional support. So I studied nutrition, started to work in that line of defense in terms of building a body. And so I thought, well, with exercise and with nutrition, now we've got a good marriage to build a body. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so introduce that even in the performance arena. And yet people still were limited in their expression of the body and its capability. It still didn't, in my world, didn't match the expectations of what I thought could happen to the body. I always knew that there was a divine connection.
That's right.
You know, between this body and possibility. So that was kind of my nuts and bolts approach. The fitness company, using my electronics engineering degree in terms of support and a business model. And then it was quite successful. Everything was great. And I thought, you know, this is kind of a cool thing, but there was still something missing. And I think that, and we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I also was a young athlete. I don't often talk about it, but I was #1 in Arkansas when I was 12 years old in tennis. Wow. And was just, I don't know, I played softball, did a lot of other different, did a lot of sports and dance and so on, but enjoyed it and loved it so much. It's intriguing to me that you watched folks go into the gym and then not achieve their goals. I mean, I can now look on it and kind of piece together, but can you elaborate a little bit as to, you know, I heard you once actually in a share talk about losing weight and how the emotions, you know, when we have too much emotion, we're producing too much cortisol in the body, which is causing either inflammation or it's not allowing for the organs to optimally process foods and distribute the nutrients to the parts of the body where it needs to go. Can you elaborate? Is that connecting there?
Yeah. So the process, and as I noticed people not really achieving their ultimate goals. So people were getting to some point and then plateauing.
Got it.
This is typically what happens. There will be some change the moment you do something different. And this is where these diets come in. They say, I guarantee you a loss of 10 pounds in a week.
Right.
And that's pretty true. The moment you change anything, the body goes into a fight or flight response. It literally goes, wait a minute, you know, Cassie's doing something different here. I gotta, you know, look at my resources. I've got to start to really see what environment I need to fit into now. So this is the epigenetic phenomenon, that is that the influence over the genetic code from an outside condition. So we've changed the diet. We've changed something that we eat. Okay. Well, then what happens is the body starts to evaluate that, and it will shed some weight. And usually it's about a 10-pound number, which is why diets say, I guarantee you 10 pounds in a week. The body will do that naturally. Even if you just choose to change from eating, say more meaty foods to more vegetable foods. I mean, it's going to do that anyway. Right. So I would see, my goal is all performance. These bodies we're in, right? Trust me, folks, they are highly tuned athletes. They really are. I don't care if you're sitting on a couch right now and you're watching this and you're maybe having some snacks or whatever, and you're looking at yourself going, this doesn't look like an athletic body. I promise you there is one there, because the skeletal structure, the muscle structures to move the body are extremely, they're very appealing. They really are. If you look at a body that is in its lean form, whether it's tall, short, wide, narrow, whatever it is, it still has an appeal to it, because the design of the muscles, in order how they lay on the bone structures, the ligaments and tendons, and the way they sit and move is beautiful. It really is. It's just that what happens is typically we place the body in a toxic burden of some version, of some source, right? A toxic burden. And I'm not saying that you're in a chemical plant. Right. I'm just saying that we are using a loaded energetic influence
Hmm.
to shift the body's natural systems. And when I say a loaded energetic influence, loaded meaning it's an emotion. It
Right.
is a frequency.
Right.
And typically these are limiting frequencies that a belief structure that's been built, even, I mean, within your lifetime, but even ancestral is something that's inherited because of our the way our family was
Yep.
and the way we were raised.
Yep.
And so there's behavior patterns that are influencing our behavior patterns as an adult.
Okay.
And so those drive emotions. They drive, well, let's go back for a moment.
Mhm.
They drive a perception. So we see something. It goes through the mind, which drives a program or a filtering mechanism, right? A way of thinking.
Right.
Everybody has a way of thinking. That's your program.
Right.
Nothing wrong or right about that. I'm just saying this is the way it works. That program then builds an analysis and a chemical influence, which is a peptide that goes into the body to help you feel
Right.
as you are thinking.
Right.
And the thinking helps to build how you're feeling. So the feeling and the thinking become an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought, it's important because thought is what the brain does. And emotion is what the body does. So thought is to the brain as emotion is to the body. And the two build the experience. It enriches life. And that's why we're here, to have experiences, right?
Right.
So these experiences can be modified. We can, through the thought, through the filtering process, we can actually reorganize the influence over the body. And so we're sitting here having a chemical influence or energetic influence, AKA an emotion, and that builds a toxic burden. It really does. These, what I call below the line frequency emotions. So anger, frustration, resentment, shame, fear, those things are below the line. These are lower vibrational frequencies, and they downregulate.
Right.
Understand, they downregulate the genetic code.
Right.
And not in a bad way, because it actually, well, it's just that if we do it over a long period of time, then the body becomes this body of anger, this body of shame, this body of jealousy or below the line frequency. It's okay to feel these feelings short term.
Sure.
Right? It's the chronic long-term influence that builds a body over decades that is down regulating that genetic code to be an unhealthy organism. It's that. And so balance is important in what I saw in the athletic arena is people working their butts off in the gym. Then I would influence their nutrition. They would tune up their nutrition. They'd get a bit of a change and then plateau again. And they would go home. And they would go home to an environment that was unserving, right. Or a job that was non-meaningful, right. or a group of friends that were complaining and limiting. And so the body would plateau it. It could only get to a certain level in which it reflected the average of its environment. You are the sum total of the average of your environment. Okay. So you want to unpack that, or you'll go to the next subject? Or?
Well, no, I mean, I would, in a sense, I mean, would you share with us a little bit about this is a precursor to what is epigenetics. And so for those of us that are new to the study of epigenetics, what Ken is talking about is that our environments, whether they are our thoughts, whether they are our friend groups, whether that's our job, our environment, at our home, also our ancestral lineages, how we were raised, affects our body on a cellular level. And he's talking about that it will deregulate or downregulate our frequency, or our frequency is, will you help me there?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we look at things from a very broad spectrum, let's just let's just go to a what I call a divergent focus, which is a wide gaze. Okay, go to 10,000 feet for a moment.
Okay.
And look down the landscape of life here for a second. So there are really only two states that we need to be concerned about. Mm-hmm. Number one, it's the two states of our nervous system,
right?
Either sympathetic or parasympathetic.
Right.
Okay. Right. Sympathetic nervous system is when we're in that fight or flight. The body is building the chemistry, building the modality for fight, flight, or freeze, some stress response. Okay. And that's not a bad thing. We need to be able to do that because if, first of all, let's just say, many of you guys are probably drivers out there, drive a car, and you're driving along and your visual cortex, your visual acuity picks up a ball rolling into the road from, a side street or something like that. And what happens? There's an automatic reflex within the body to move to the brakes, to evade, to prepare. And that is an autonomic system. That literally is that parasympathetic system. It's the limbic brain, the prehistoric brain, keeping us safe, keeping us alive, acting in automatic or autonomic ways. That's great. But what happens is that we have a belief structure, a thought process that we gained. Well, it's probably not even ours. It was probably adopted or adapted from something happening in childhood, a stress response, a trauma of some sort.
Right.
It becomes a hardwired program in the brain. And so just like the ball rolling in the street, you see some aggressive entity that maybe was associated with a childhood trauma, or some likeness to the proponent that created this trauma. Whether it be even driving a blue car. And so maybe you got in a car accident as a child in a blue car. And when you see some blue car acting aggressively, there's a redundant program that starts to work. It's the limbic brain keeping you safe. And so just like the ball rolling out and it causes you to pump the brakes, this blue car or this aggressor, whatever it is, causes that same response in the body, and you go right into that fight or flight mechanism, right into the sympathetic nervous system. And that's, again, it's not a bad thing, but these redundant programs that operate us need be reorganized, need be identified, number one, and number two, reorganized. And I'm not a proponent for rehearsing that trauma from childhood. I'm not a proponent of saying, psychology is going to ask you to go back to the experience and it's going to ask you to start building models to overcome them. You don't have to overcome them. Probably the most powerful way of getting beyond a trauma in our lives is to build a model that makes it obsolete. This is the fundamental key, is to build a model that makes that trauma obsolete. In other words, you've figured out a way or a purpose or a design to fall in love so much with your current state of life that the past doesn't matter anymore.
That is a dream.
That's having a goal, having a dream, having a purpose, having a focus, having an intention, right? That keeps you busy, keeps you aligned, and keeps you in motion with your goal, right? And then it doesn't give you time. You see a blue car, it's like, I don't got time for that blue car to have an influence on me. I'm building a dream, right? And you're living as if it is real in this present moment. So you're walking as if you're dressing as if you're talking to the people as if it. And I'm going to tell you the hack, where that comes from comes from our heart. That comes from connecting to a purpose, connecting to a dream that is so ingrained in our heart that nothing else, it's a love bigger than anything else that may show up to cause us derailment. And answer me this. I'm going to ask everybody in the audience, anybody who watches this, I'm going to ask you this question.
Yeah.
When you have an experience, so let's say that you have sat in the midst of maybe a meditation or a prayer, and what you were creating in that intention showed up that day
Mm-hmm.
or showed up the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Can someone come up to you and tell you that didn't happen? No, that
No.
experience is yours. That experience is real. That experience is larger than life, and nobody can take you off your soapbox. And when you tell that story over and over again, and I highly suggest you do, every time you tell that story, it reinforces the experience in the body, and the body starts to become a epigenetic influence of a manifester, of a creator. And you just keep telling that story, because let me give you a little hint. Part of that hack is that the body does not know the difference between an experience you make up in your mind or one you have in a three-dimensional space.
Right.
It doesn't know the difference. It will just build the cell structures. It will build the organism,
Right.
so that it can navigate in that experience. Make
And
sense?
absolutely. And I think that's what I think is so profound about our work. And, I would like to stay here if we can for a moment. So what he's essentially saying is, which I think is so profound and brings so much hope, is that I give the analogy of, we don't know if it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex or a car honking behind us when, we're in the car and somebody lays on their horn. Our body doesn't know if it's set up to protect us. And so, in the same way, we can begin to create a new life for ourselves simply by, as he was saying, being in meditation and feeling the vibrational frequency of health, feeling the vibrational frequency of ease and abundance. And it will then become it will then create an imprint in our cellular being. Or would you say we have to start in the non-physical first to bring it into the physical?
Well, there goes the interesting analogy, because in order for there to be matter or
Okay,
form,
right.
in order for there to be matter or form, there must be a consciousness.
That's right.
Consciousness observes matter into form.
Right.
And so we have this amazing blueprint, divine blueprint of each one of us. Each human being on this planet, each living organism on this planet has a very complete, whole and healthy blueprint in the information field. Where is the information field? This is a frequency above the speed of light. This is what most people call God, what you may call the quantum field.
Right.
It is a space beyond the electron. If you want to go to the science part,
Sure.
it's beyond the electron.
Yes.
And everything that has matter or mass has an electron field to it. And in order for it to exist, it must have an observer.
Mm-hmm.
It's Einstein's law of relativity, right? It's
Right. This isn't woo. This is science.
no, this
Yeah.
is science. It's the observer effect. And so you could look at it this way, if you look at a tree, then it exists. If you look away, does it still?
Right.
It may or may not, but you're not observing it, so you can't say for sure. So the moment that we decide to believe something, now we're taking the information field and we're bringing it down into thought.
Mm-hmm.
And our brain is this amazing transceiver,
Mm-hmm.
receiver, and transmitter. The brain is just an organism, just an organ like the liver or the heart or the lungs. It's an organ, but when it's working, it's thinking. That's its job, right? That's its job. And so, but you can't take a brain cell and cut it open and see a thought.
Right.
It's not there. Where is it? I mean, you can measure the energy, but you can't read the thought in the brain cell. So this is what's interesting about thought. It's not actually, it's the brain is the device in which is propagating and allowing your awareness to observe it, but it's not in the brain.
it's what I would say, and you're the appropriate person for me to pose this question to, but I've been thinking the difference between the mind and the brain.
Correct. Correct. So again, like I said, the brain at work is the mind.
Right.
Or thought is the brain at work.
Right.
Okay. So, and what's the purpose of the mind? The mind's purpose is to make sense of things. Everything outside of you is to make sense of things. And Michael Singer writes an amazing book called Untethered Soul.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to understand the mind,
Mm-hmm.
go there
Yeah.
for a moment, because he does a great job of explaining that the mind's job is to make sense of things. Just like, have you ever looked out the window
Mm-hmm.
and you see that it's raining and the mind says it's raining?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of a redundant thing. You see it's happening, but then the mind says it's raining. And then as you start to plan your day, it says it's raining. It's raining, but it's raining. But, you know, it's constantly reminding you of this obvious observation that you just saw outside of you. And that's just because the mind is trying to make sense of the bridge between the outside world and the inside world. So you have essentially what's called dominion over the experience, right? To know that you're safe. You've been in rain before. You may not like it, but you know, you're gonna have an opinion about it. You have some plans, or you have to plan accordingly. So typically we plan for worst case scenario around rain. Okay. So this is the mind, this is the brain at work, keeping us safe. And it, to some degree, placing us in that sympathetic nervous system, right? The analysis and the fight or flight. And again, not bad, but just understand the next phase, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. The other side of that coin is the rest and digest.
Right.
And the sympathetic nervous system requires certain physical attributes of you in order to propagate the experience. Number one, it needs a short, quick breath. You know, it needs a respiration that is short, that is not very deep, so that it's kind of in an agitated breathing system. And so this is where we can start to regulate. If we're in the sympathetic or parasympathetic, we have control over this with our breath. This is one of the most valuable, the most powerful tools that we have to sway what's called the vagal tone.
Yep.
Okay. The vagal tone is named after essentially the vagus nerve system, which is the largest, most widest reaching nervous system within our body that gives information from the body to the brain, so that the brain can say, yep, you're doing what I'm asking you to do. Like I said earlier, you have a thought, creates a chemical, a peptide, goes in the body feels the emotion. The body then tells the brain, yep, we're having the emotion. So the brain can continue to think to propagate the emotion. So the brain is thinking, the body is feeling, and that cycle keeps an emotion going. Okay. And the vagus nerve is what helps propagate the information from the body to the brain. And now, some of this stuff is subconscious, because the reticular activating system, which is the biggest nervous system, that's a bundle of nerves from the brainstem into the body. The vagus, or the reticular activating system, processes 400 billion bits of information per second. That's tremendous. 400 billion, that's with a B. 400 billion, I'm reaching my arms way out here. 400 billion bits of information is that much. But what we're aware of is 2,000 bits. And that's this little bit right here. But just think about right now, everything you're feeling, smelling, tasting, sensing, everything you're hearing, all that is within that 2,000 bits. That's a lot. If I was to say, take a wide gaze for a moment and take a snapshot, and I want you to write down everything, the texture, the depth, the color, all the sensory perception about that moment. That's a lot of content, but still within that 2,000 bit bandwidth. So 2,000 bits we're aware of, 400 billion bits that's being processed by the brain. A lot going on subconsciously. That's the point.
Right.
And the subconscious content that's within that 400 billion is ancestral,
Right.
is childhood, is trauma,
Yeah.
is redundant programming. is all of the things that's got us to this point of survival right now.
Right.
Okay. So I like to ask people, does the experiences in this moment, the suffering, the concerns, the worry, the trauma, the gossip, the complaining, whatever it is that's limiting your life, do those bits of content in the present moment from your past belong in your future? And if the answer is no, now this is where the work begins.
Right.
This is where the work begins. And as I mentioned before, you start building a blueprint, a fire escape plan, making that old stuff redundant by finding such an extreme focus on something you love. I don't care if it's basket weaving, just something that you love so much that it can outweigh what you're focusing on that's causing illness or disorder, or let me put it this way, what's causing the sympathetic nervous system to engage.
Right.
Okay. All right. So because the reason everything I'm telling you is leading to the point of how you epigenetically engineer the code that builds the cell. 97% of the genetic code building this next cell is adaptive.
That's incredible. 97%, you guys.
That's a
97% chance, right? I mean, in a sense, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the 3%, the 3% of that code says it's going to be a skin cell, a bone cell, a muscle cell, whatever, right? That's redundant. I mean, that's built into the divine plan. Awesome. And that's what keeps us alive. There is a divine energy that keeps the cells creating Cassie. So you still look like Cassie over the years. You don't morph into a 6'5" football playing male or something like that. You stay you. So the interesting part about that is the you of childhood and the you of adolescence, the you of teenage years, and the you of today are still the you. It's just that beliefs, perceptions, behaviors have influenced cell structures. So the you of the now may be in some disorder, maybe in some disease or some pain or suffering. And again, like I said, if you don't want that to belong in your future, then we need to shift some things right now so that we can epigenetically build a new model. And that 97% of the adaptive gene I told you about is influenced by energy, by frequency. And this is where a Healy can come in. This is where meditation comes in. This is where prayer or focus or intention comes in. We have a thought, and it's just a thought of a beautiful sunset. And we have gratitude for it. And we feel appreciation because of it. We feel love in our heart as a result. And that thought propagates a new chemical that goes down to the body, and 800,000 cells per second are being recreated under that thought. So the more seconds you keep that thought growing and going, the more body that's being built under love, under gratitude, under joy, right? And the difference in the cell structure, the 97% of the adaptive gene that's reading that informational code or that frequency, it's just building a cell that's stronger, more vital, more adaptive, and a higher frequency. It's just healthier.
So I'd love for you to share. So anyone that's tuning in right now, we're talking about epigenetics. We're talking about how to, one of Ken's hashtags that he always uses on his posts is "I create me." And he's essentially opening up the door to a new world of possibilities that we have our free will, essentially, to create the life that we want to live. So if we, and I'm including myself, are having thoughts that are not serving us, or we're doing things in our life that are not serving us, that is essentially creating the future that we don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about different ways in order to ease and essentially, as he was saying, put our body in a rest and digest state so that our cells are not being, don't have this toxic overload from the chemical reaction in our brain that's caused when we have, quote, and I don't want to say healthy or unhealthy thought, but one that's going to bring us into a fight, flight, freeze state versus a thought that will bring us into a rest and digest. So I'd love for you to share, if you can. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, we can call it a high frequency thought or a low frequency thought.
Okay.
Right? I mean, not good or bad, just
right.
They are what they are. They're high frequency thoughts or low frequency thoughts. And what that means is like, if you have an emotion and let's put it this way, if it makes you feel bad,
right,
probably a low frequency thought.
Right.
Right. I mean, this is kind of the cool thing is we don't have to go get a PhD or go, or to become a guru or some shaman to say that I know what feels bad or what feels good. You already know. And if you know what feels bad and you continue to build the thoughts that allow the body to feel bad, now this is a certain level of ignorance. I'm sorry to say that there's just a responsibility level that I think that we need to accept, believe, and surrender to, because the sympathetic nervous system versus the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is where you're healing.
Right.
That's where you're healing your body.
Okay.
And so if we choose to spend time in the stress response, AKA the sympathetic nervous system, now we're shutting off. I want you guys to hear me. When we're in the sympathetic nervous system, it doesn't matter if you're justified or not. It doesn't matter if it's redundant thought or not. It doesn't matter if all the evidence in your world says, I should be mad. It doesn't matter, because when you're in the sympathetic nervous system, three main essential systems go offline. They become non-essential.
Right.
Number one,
right, digestion.
Yeah. The digestive system shuts down because you're in fight or flight. When you're running from T-Rex, it's not, you don't need to be digesting your dinner. You're going to be dinner, right? And the body doesn't know whether it's T-Rex or you got cut off in traffic and you're just angry.
Right.
It doesn't know if you're in a dark tunnel and you're scared. Right. It doesn't know the difference. It just thinks it's survival mode now. Right. And so non-essential systems, or I should say essential systems, become non-essential. So the number one is digestion. So let me spell it out for you.
Please.
If you are at work, you got off work, you hurry through traffic, and you jump into the store, maybe grab some dinner material. It's a long line. You're frustrated because it was taking forever. Everybody's hungry at home and they're waiting for you, and you're in a big hurry. You come flying into the driveway, jump out of the car, grab your groceries, drop half a dozen things, pick them back up. You run into the house, start scattering pans and cans and stuff to build your dinner, toss it on the table and say, okay, everybody eat. What state is the body in?
Right.
It's in stress response, right? So now you're eating food in stress response. What's the number one system that's offline?
Right.
You're not going to digest that food.
Right.
It's going to sit in your tank. It's going to you're going to go to bed. The digestive system is inefficient. It's going to sit there, some of it being those calories converting into non-usable content because the body's not doing anything, and it becomes stored as fat. This is the system. Okay. This is the way it works. I mean, it's not my fault. It's not even your fault. It's just the divine's creation, so that it's non-judgmental. It is subjective to everybody. Everybody's subjected to its outcome. All right. So number one system, digestive system shuts off. Now I'm going to tell you a little story real quick. There was this amazing carpenter way back hundreds of years ago that gave everyone an idea that if you just stopped for a moment and sat over your food and appreciated it, maybe in prayer or in focused concentration or in meditation, and just sat for 2 minutes, and you appreciated the food, you appreciated the company you're in, you appreciated the home you're in, you appreciated your life for just a moment. And you took a couple of deep breaths while you're doing that, and you allow the heart rate to down regulate into rest. You allow the respiration rate to level off, and you allow yourself in your heart to feel love and appreciation just for a few minutes. Now you eat your food. Different. You've just moved the body from sympathetic to parasympathetic, from fight or flight to rest and digest, right? And now when you eat your food, it's going to now become a part of your body, a useful tool, and there'll be a whole lot less gastric upset as you go into your evening, I promise you. So this carpenter was a very brilliant guy way back when, wore sandals and robes, but maybe you know who he is. But the point is, I'm just saying, take a moment to pray for your food, or to find gratitude. Yeah. If prayer is not your thing, that's okay. Find love and gratitude for that present moment, and then eat. Okay. So system number 2. System number 2 is your immune system. Guess what? When you're running from T-Rex, remember, you don't care about a cut on your finger or a bug, a cold or a flu symptom. Heck no, because you're going to get eaten. So your immune system does not need to consume energy when you need to put that energy into the muscles. Run. Okay. Remember, everything that your body does consumes energy or utilizes energy. And so this is why it's conserving energy when we're in that sympathetic nervous system from the digestive system, and now conserving energy from the immune system. So if you're catching a cold all the time, or you're always sniffly, or even allergies, I'm going to tell you something here. Even allergies, the body's intolerance to certain things is because of a stress response. Right. Inflammation is a stress response. Okay. Pain is a stress response. Every disease is linked. Every chronic, long-term acute disease is linked to stress response. Every one. All right. So to overcome that parasympathetic or that sympathetic system, to overcome it, again, the breath is a great little hack. Take some deep breaths, right? Yeah. And I'll talk about the breath here in a minute. System number 3. Essential systems that become non-essential when you're in that fight or flight mechanism is system number 3 is reproduction. Reproduction system. Ladies and gentlemen, folks are having a hard time having a family, having children, getting pregnant. It's not his fault. It's not her fault. It's not the fertilization. It's the stress response within the body. I promise you, go on vacation. Find some romantic space. Spend a week there with no care in the world with your partner. Just enjoy each other. Right? Smile, talk, appreciate the environment, the sunset. Don't think about your world. Think about your present moment. How many people come back from vacation pregnant? A lot. This is why. So just think about this when you're in your stressed life, right, and you're in the stressed clinic saying he's not, or she's not, or you better. It's causing the infertility. It's not that you can't. It's just the body says you're in stress response. This is not time to create life when you're running for your life. When you're trying to preserve your life, that's where there's no energy for building life in your root center. It's simply in survival.
It reminds me, so Ken is you've been studying with Dr. Joe Dispenza for a decade or so. Yeah. And I saw a video of his recently of a woman who had tried everything under the sun to be pregnant. And he started working with her, and the doctors just had said, it's never going to happen, etc. And there was just a lovely, lovely video. I'm sure you could Google it and find it on YouTube. And she has twin baby boys, and just, an incredible experience. I don't even think she was, I think she was in her 40s. I mean, she had all the odds against her. And so if you would share with us a little bit about, I would love to hear of how you came to work with Dr. Joe, and kind of how that leads into the work that we have with Healy, and really just how profound, Healy is able to really take us out of it, creates more consciousness in the body, creates more of an awareness of what it is that we're thinking, how it is that we're feeling, so that we can navigate our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. So remember I said earlier, 97% of the genetic code is adaptive, reading the influence or the environment. And Healy puts a frequency into the environment. And the environment of the cell is your body, right? The body is the environment. The internal of the body is the environment of the cell. The environment you live is the environment of your body that's influenced by that external. So we take the external, interpret it through the brain, and allow it to influence the internal. So on the outside, so as the inside. So if we're not managing or regulating the influence of our outer environment properly, everything's stressing us out. Everything is causing us to be in a lower vibration. Everything is against us. In other words, life is against us, not for us. Right. Then the mental process that's building all that model is going to cause a disorder within the cell structure. Okay. So again, that's the epigenetic thing. I was in a time in my life. So again, I have successful business, family man, building a life. And I got to a point in my life where I'm the kind of guy that quits a job, buys a house, and starts a business in the same month. I'm like, let's cannonball in the pool. And so I did all that. And, I don't know, 15 years into my business, and it was successful. I had, employees and an office, and we'd even opened a fitness equipment sales store, and it was doing a lot of really cool stuff with fitness center consulting and just innovative stuff. And it was great. But I got to a point where I didn't feel the challenge anymore. I felt complacency, and I was involved in the community in terms of business organization, working with the local political structure, with the mayor, increasing business centers within the city. My business was part of that whole organization. I was the chairman of a couple of different committees, working with the city council. I mean, all this stuff, right? And I thought, man, I'm making a difference. And I didn't realize the toxicity of the environment. Right. But my consciousness did. And I've always been one that could just, I'm what you would call claircognizance. I just know. I just tapped in and I get this knowing. Mm-hmm. And so I was actually working with a psychic medium at the time because I knew something beyond my physical 3D space. I knew something beyond that. I just couldn't figure it out. So I was working with a psychic medium. She had actually turned me on to Greg Braden, and a book called his book called Deep Truth, and talks about the language of the body, the emotional language of the body, and it being the language of prayer, not the words, but the emotion, the feeling of the body being the actual prayer content or the driver for the expression of what you're desiring. So working with Greg Braden, and I sat in my kitchen one day, just me and the dog, and I just knew there was something different available to me. And I put my hands in the air, and I'm a spiritual guy. I was raised Catholic, but I'm very spiritual driven, not religious driven. I mean, I understand. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I know there's a higher power. I know there's a greater self. Mm-hmm. And I just put my hands in the air and I said, I surrender. My beliefs, perceptions, my ego mold me. Woo! Watch out, because when you do that with truth in your heart, with desire in your heart, and a knowing in your mind. When you do that to a high degree of importance, the universe will shift on its axis to show you, the new.
Yes, it really will.
And things opened. I mean, that was a Tuesday. I remember I did that. On Thursday, my world turned upside down. It was like, okay, thing after thing after thing was saying, okay, you're not going to do this anymore. You're going to go to this event. Greg Braden was having this event in Seattle. It was called Get Your Shift Together. I love the name.
I love that.
Right? And I said, okay, I'm in. And I go, and he had this co-host by the name of Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I had no idea who this guy was.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to this event. And I listened to Greg's part, and he does a lot with the environment and a lot with how we can co-create with other humans and build a signal where one influences 1,000. And it's a very, very powerful thing. So, and then Dr. Joe got up on stage. Oh my goodness. My mouth dropped. I was like, okay, at that time, he only had 2 books, Evolve Your Brain and Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I bought both of his books. He had 3 CDs. I bought all of his CDs, his meditations. I'm like, okay. And 3 months later, I'm at his progressive workshop in Canada. And that's when my life changed. Completely. I went to that event. It was called a progressive workshop. Now you can actually do those online. You can actually purchase the progressive workshop. It's a 12-part. You can do it in 12 weeks. You can do it in a weekend, but 12-part course. I highly recommend it. But it's literally will rewrite the way that you think, and the way that you interface between a thought and a feeling and free will. The influence of free will, and how we need to reinforce that free will by connecting to a will greater than ourselves. And meditation is a great way to do that. So I was in that event. When I came home, it was only a 4-day event. I was gone for 6 days, because if anybody ever goes to a transformational event like that, don't go back into your life the day after it's done. Allow the integration of the content to change your body before you go back into the familiar environment. It's going to solidify things a lot better for you. So that event changed everything. When I came back, my world was the same, but I didn't see it the same. I was different. And so the walls of the house, the workspace in my environment, the coworkers, they were not different, but my perception was. My nervous system was upregulated by that event. And the nervous system can be upregulated in a second, but it takes a while for the 3-dimensional cell structures to catch up. So your nervous system can process a higher frequency. It takes a minute for the body to process. And so what I would see in my world and what I would hear was different than what my body was interfacing with. And it took a while to integrate this content. But when I did, I started to see how people complained. I started to see how people had low energy thoughts. I started to see how the suffering was propagating everyone's actions, and I didn't fit anymore. I mean, that year, I like to use the word divorce, but it's not really divorce, but I literally unfriended over 200 people in my life, not maliciously and not even intentionally. It just happened. I didn't fit them anymore. They didn't fit me anymore. We just stopped talking. But the cool thing is, over 500 people came into my life that did fit the new me. It's lonely at first.
It is.
But when we change something to a degree in which we feel this unconditional love within us, we feel this feeling of gratitude and joy now, this new feeling of joy. There is a bit of a dark night of the soul,
Yep.
But look around, and what doesn't fit you anymore, allow it to just bless it and release it. Allow it to move out of our lives, because when you do that, you make room for something new that does fit you now, and it'll be better. Trust me, it will be better than what left, because what comes in fits this new heart, this new unconditional love frequency. And this is what changes our lives. Community helped change our lives. And Healy is an amazing community of high frequency, high vibe people, because they're tapped in, turned on, and tuned up.
Right.
With Healy, right?
Right. So if someone's just stepping into this conversation, and what we're talking about, just a quick recap, is just this incredible experience that Ken was just sharing with us about his meeting, which I think is so cool, that he was a guest speaker. Is that what you're saying? He was
he was just a guest speaker, a co-speaker with Ray Braden.
Yeah. And what year is this?
This was 2012.
Right. What a great year. I mean, well,
it was a great
transition. It was a transformational year. Yeah, it was an incredible year. I'll say that. And so and what Dr. Joe talks about a lot is to essentially, we cannot create in the quantum field as who we think we are. We are not our title. We are not our status in a community. We are not our bank account. We are not these things. And so I've been listening to his meditations before I go to sleep and when I wake up, and it puts my brain into that theta state, so that I'm able to dream and wake up in that state. Hopefully the idea is to do that. And so essentially, what he's sharing is that he became aware of negative thinking, perhaps in his environment, and then all of a sudden everything's shifting. And that when we shift our frequency, when we shift our vibrational frequency, not right nor wrong, it just, certain things will start to fall away from our life. And there is certainly a grieving period. I certainly have experienced it several times. And, I mean, there have been major times in my life where it just, the people that were in my life forever, it just simply disappeared. And I was able to kind of cope with that, and understanding that it was just a difference in frequency. Nothing more, nothing less. So how does Healy essentially become an ally to us in that sense? I find that Healy is really an incredible ally in that way.
Yep, I agree. And remember that the universe or God or the infinite intelligence does not give us what we want. It gives us what we're being. And because a state of being requires a thought and an emotion to build this frequency, this state. And Healy really promotes the state because it works with the tangible nuts and bolts of the body.
Right.
It helps us to realign cell membrane voltage. So the very fundamental piece of our body is the cell. 100 trillion cells, 70 to 100 trillion, depends on who you're talking about. 100 trillion cells in the body, and they're reproducing to the tune of 800,000 per second.
Right, you guys, that's incredible.
Think about that.
Yeah.
So it's a very short period of time in which you can hold a thought, hold an energetic expression, hold an influence from Healy, and create new cell structures on a new genetic code. It's still going to be a skin cell or a bone cell or a muscle cell, but the difference in that 97% of the adaptive part of the gene is to what quality and kind.
Right.
That's the key. And the body becomes a better quality and kind when you're using a higher frequency influence. And so this is where Healy comes in, because I'm using the Healy with the coil right now. And I am propagating a magnetic signal. And the program I'm running right now is from the learning page called Memory.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, this is just an influence. So if I seem more brilliant right now, it's because Healy's helping me out. It's just that I am increasing the energy to the part of the brain or the function of the brain that interfaces with memory.
Right. Right.
Okay. And so then it just seems like it's a new me or a different me or a more smooth or synergistic me. That's it. I can also use the electrodes and run the microcurrent through my body. Yep. Like Cassie's doing right there. And that is actually changing ATP production within the cell. It's changing protein synthesis. It's changing amino acid transport. It's literally working with the fundamental systems of the cell to improve their energy. The goal is to have a proper cell membrane voltage. And we can measure that. If I had a little tiny measurer, I can measure the cell membrane voltage of each cell. We don't really have to do that, but I'm just saying we kind of charge up the cells. And when the cell is at, say, 70 to 90, it's a negative 70 to negative 90 millivolts. That's a healthy cell. That's one that is vital, that is full of life. But as it gets down lower, say 50, negative 50 millivolts, now we're looking at inflammation. Right? And when it gets down to say 40, now we're looking at pain. You get it down to say 15, guess what? Now we're looking at a chaotic cell structure propagating cancer. So what we can do with Healy is we can raise that cell membrane voltage. And we have programs that will distinctly identify different cell membranes within the system, the cell structure of liver, cell structure of the heart, the cell structure of the brain, even the cellular influence of the body over emotion. We can actually speak to emotional influence, such as we have emotional well-being and things like that about creating a state within the body. So think about this.
Right.
What are we doing scientifically?
Right.
Scientifically, we're just going into the system, putting an electron flow into the body, pulsed at a very specific frequency to speak to systems, organs, and cells to charge up the cell membrane voltage, to bring them out of that chaotic disorder into vitality.
Almost like it's almost like putting in, I mean, I love the mental balance programs. It's one of my favorite. It's helped heal my it's helped my sciatica, period. I mean, I worked with mental balance programs first. I mean, I did run joints and bones and I ran the sciatic programs and so on. And I did loads of yoga to help, but that was a byproduct of working with the mental balance programs, was that my body is now pain-free, because it's essentially, and so tell us a little bit about what is in these frequencies. I mean, it's hertz frequency, it's measured in hertz, and it's sending the frequency through the body, through the meridian lines.
Yeah, so our body is a conductive organism, water, minerals. It's like a walking, talking, moving antenna. Okay. Right. And so the way in which information is sent from the radio station to the antenna of your car is electromagnetic waves. And so being the body as an antenna also receives electromagnetic waves. People call them EMFs, right? And they have a lot of judgment about EMFs, but they're not all bad. And our body adapts to the influence. But the coil system that I'm running right now transmits a magnetic signal into the environment, and it's got a range of an effective range, a high effective range of about 3 feet diameter. So I'm getting this signal, and so my body's an antenna. So what it's doing is the magnetic energy radiates into the body. The body takes the magnetic it induces a electron flow. And this is now information through our nervous system. And the electron flow goes through our nervous system and propagates the content out to the proper organs, systems, and cells. So that's how the coil works. when we're running the microcurrent through the body, now we're running electron flow directly through the cells of the body and influencing that genetic code.
Right.
Okay. As well as the existing cells that are already there. So new cells that are being made and existing cells that are already there are now, the new ones being made have a brand new frequency, a new frequency of just vitality of whatever the higher alignment is. Okay. So the existing cells were just charging the cell membrane voltage. All right. So this is kind of the way. And remember, there's not just one modality. Remember before I said I was talking with people that were exercising, then we implemented nutrition. The next part of what we did was that we then implemented energy.
Right.
Energy within the thought process, so that now the thoughts start to influence the cell systems. So just remember that Healy is not just, it's not the only answer.
Mm-hmm.
We need to take responsibility of our thoughts. We need to take responsibility of our movement to get the endocrine system, or I should say the lymphatic system, operating. Okay.
Yeah.
We need to take responsibility for our state of being.
Yeah.
And no matter how well you eat, you can have the most organic, pure, non-GMO diet, and then have thoughts of anger, despair, depression, and the body will not move beyond its state because it can't digest.
That's right.
Right. So and also we can still be sick because the immune system's offline.
Right.
So use your Healy in conjunction with a proper diet. Use your Healy in conjunction with a proper fitness or activity program. Use your Healy in in conjunction with a proper meditation or mindfulness practice. Do all of that. And then your body is going to show you what's possible.
Well, we are past the top of the hour, and I know that you have Tech Tip Tuesday this evening. If you are interested in learning more about the technical aspect of Healy, Ken every Tuesday with Jake Barron conducts about an hour call where you can call in and you can ask any question about Healy, which there are several and many and wide ranging. And that's at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Yep.
Right. And you can find that. I'll put the link in the comments below. The other that I wanted to share about is anytime you guys get a chance to listen to Lori Falk and Ken Close, they have a Monday Magic.
Monday Magic, yeah, with Ken and Lori.
Ken and Lori, and that is
it's the second Monday of every month.
Right.
Yep.
Second Monday of every month.
And it's always at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. Yep.
Yep. And I would love to see if there are any questions that we have. We have lots of comments here in the chat. We have Paula Lawrence. Hi, Paula.
Hi, Paula.
Bernadette. Hi. Let's see. Any questions? Love this depth and insight. That is from Dina. Hi, Dina Ricker. Our deep desires are the seeds of our purpose, from Diana Conrad. Right after I did a huge Facebook cleanse, the Healy clan showed up. Exactly. I can't imagine not having people like Michelle Patrick. Shout out to Dr. Michelle Patrick, who we're going to be having here on September 6th. Let's see. Emotional well-being, balance was what helped me immensely with feelings of anxiousness. And I had to do a double duty elder care for my parents, dementia with both of them. Blessings to you, Dina. Yeah, so incredible. Ken, is there anything else that comes to mind that you feel called to share?
Yeah, I'll tell you something, folks. Stop giving your power away.
Yeah. Gosh.
Stop giving your power away. We are the creators of our body.
Right.
We are and this body operates in a life. So the more that we take charge of this body and just use the body as your measuring stick by remaining in the parasympathetic nervous system. It doesn't matter if you're justified. Please just work with your body, listen to its messages, Find ways to balance. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I call my self-care protocol.
Please.
Do this every day.
Okay.
Number one, drink half your body weight in ounces of water every day. Number one. Okay. Number two, breathe. Breathe fully. Your lungs touch the collarbone. The collarbone and the lower rib, the lowest rib, that's how large one lung is.
Right.
So breathe fully. I propagate what's called a box breath. Just breathe in for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, exhale for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, and repeat.
Right.
You do that for 5 reps, and you will move your body from sympathetic to parasympathetic, fight or flight to rest and digest. It doesn't matter if you're in a traffic jam. It doesn't matter if you just got a horrible email or if there's been a loss in your family.
Right.
The body will still do it for you based on this breath. So number 2, breathe. Okay. Number 3, grounding. Find some time to anchor yourself in the earth. Find some time to spend in nature. Use, if you need to, if you can't do that, there are grounding mats you can plug into the electrical system of your house. There are sheets, pillowcases. There's all kinds of products out there to propagate grounding. But earth grounding is number 1. And the only way that works is when you put your skin in the dirt, lay on the beach in the sand in your shorts or bikini. I don't care. Do it. All right. The number 3. Number 4 is movement. You need to move the body. This lymphatic system, its pump is your muscle structure. And like I said earlier, there is a skeletal structure and a muscle structure underneath whatever you think you're seeing.
Right.
Okay. It's there. It still works. So move your body. These are long movements, yoga, stretching, dance, walking, just that. It's easy. And number 5, I think, is probably one of my favorites. Fall in love with life. Just find something that you can fall in love with.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's a pet, if it's a sunset, if it's an ice cream cone. It doesn't matter. Just pull up the feeling of love in your heart and decide that you want to have a love affair with life. And the moment that you fall in love with life, it will fall in love with you. That's it.
Yeah. So beautiful. Ken, thank you so much. And I hope to, hear from you again in the fall, and many blessings to you. I really, from my heart to yours, I appreciate every talk that I've ever heard you share. You really do bring in the love frequency, and it's really incredible. And I can feel that. And I know everyone here, or hope that everyone is open enough to receive that. And thank you. And
I feel it.
To you. Yeah.
Thank you. Much love, my friend. Thank you so much for this.
Very good. Talk to you soon. All
Okay,
right.
bye.
Take good care. Bye-bye.